Welcome back, everybody, to Just the News, No Noise. I know when these special elections come along that people don't necessarily pay as much attention to them as they would if it were midterm elections or certainly every 4 years a general election. But there are some major ones coming up tomorrow, and who better to preview what's going to happen in them than one of America's most accurate pollsters. He is the director of Big Data Poll, Rich Baris. Rich, welcome back.
Thanks, Amanda. Thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
Great to have you on the eve of what I hope means we will find some answers tomorrow, although we know that some of these states, they like to drag out the results like California. We'll get to California in a minute, but New Jersey, let's start there. What do you think is going to happen?
I think New Jersey is probably going to give us the clearest picture. If it is very close, we will unfortunately have to wait for counties like Bergen to work itself out. It's just the nature of modern elections. But I do think that New Jersey is probably going to be the closest of the contests that we have coming up, aside from maybe some surprises in Virginia where some of the races can be close. But at the top of the ticket, you know, the main event elections, I do think New Jersey is the one to watch.
Yeah, that sounds right. The capital of the capitalist world could have a socialist Wednesday morning, you think?
I do. I did hear about the president's endorsement of Cuomo. A lot of people have voted already, ladies and gentlemen, a lot.
That's right.
Turnout in New York for early vote has been pretty gangbuster for a New York mayoral election. They're pretty notoriously low turnout elections. This one probably will eclipse Giuliani-Dinkins, which is incredible. And if it does, that's very good for Mamdani. Now, I know a lot of people would say, but in the primary, turnout was the issue for Cuomo and others. That's true, but we do know the demographics of a lot of these people that did vote early, and there's nothing, I mean, I can go through them one by one, but honestly, guys, there's nothing in the early vote data that makes me think the polls are off. All right, let me put it that way. I do think that Mamdani's going to win. The question for me, I'm kicking around, is will he hit 50%? Will he not? I think, honestly, when someone gets an air of inevitability, a lot of the rest of the undecided voters will say, you know what, I'll just go to Mamdani. And if that does happen, he's only about, according to the polls anyway, he's only about 2 points from that threshold. So I think, you know, this one's pretty much in the bag already. You know, I hope I'm wrong, but I think it is.
Right. On that, because I know that there are a lot of folks out there who are saying, you know, Mamdani is the future of the Democrat Party. They are going radically left. If he doesn't hit that 50% threshold, does that tell you that maybe Democrats haven't gone as far left as some folks think?
I don't know if I would honestly say that, because some Democrats who are going to vote for Cuomo are going to, and I've talked to some of them are going to do so because they are keenly aware of the brand damage. And John, we talked about this before. There are some Democrats that are terrified of Mamdani, not because they disagree with his policies, but because they don't want that to be the mainstream idea of the left nationally. And we brought this up last time. Republicans did they ran successfully a lot against Bill de Blasio and Nancy Pelosi not too long ago, right? When we look back to some of those midterms during the Obama years. And there are some, and I dare I say, smarter Democrats who understand that this is a gift to the White House. This is a gift to Republicans. And while progressives can celebrate that they're able to get somebody like Mamdani elected in the largest city in the country, they can celebrate that in the short term, because in the long term, all of their own research, Amanda, is telling them that they have damaged their party badly with extremist views and with views that are really only, batted around in the coastal areas of this country. And they have focused too much on issues that are almost luxury issues, when the rest of the country has been hurting badly. So it's probably not a great long-term thing for the Democratic Party.
Yeah. I want to ask about whether a good 25 election for Democrats could mean a bad 26 election for Democrats, because you could wake up on Wednesday morning and have an attorney general in Virginia who literally wished death upon his opponent's children's, a socialist in New York, a mayor out in Seattle who wants to tax you if you don't rent your house or apartment quick enough, and then a whole lot of other fun ones. A candidate in Minneapolis who pledges allegiance to the Somali leader. This could seem like the band of crazies that would be a benefit to the Republicans in 26. Look,
I don't want people to overanalyze this. There are the one that would tell me something is New Jersey. The others, I'm not outright dismissing them, but the fact of the matter is Virginia has a long tradition of voting for the party that is not in the White House, especially right after a presidential election, meaning Barack Obama, he got elected in a landslide. And then in the '09 election, Bob McDonnell absolutely stomped the Democratic candidate for governor in Virginia. It didn't mean that Virginia was, radically shifting back. Republicans did go on to have a good midterm year, but it's not always predictive. These are blue areas. New York, New Jersey is the one where I could play devil's advocate and I could say, look, Republicans were in the best position to win the governor's election in that state, even better than when Chris Christie beat John Corzine. Both of the candidates on the Democratic side were flawed, engulfed by scandal. And Jack Ciattarelli is actually relatively popular for a Republican, if you were to believe the polls. And he's also very well known. The state is not as blue as it was when Chris Christie ran against John Corzine. So, I mean, this one I could play devil's advocate on. But I would caution people to read too much into it. But I do think New Jersey, was a little bit of a test on whether or not Republicans still had that get out the vote operation that motivated not just their low propensity voters, but some of their newer, what they were hoping to be more reliable voters. And that is going to tell me something. So I don't want to dismiss New Jersey, but I also don't want people like Harry Enton out there saying it's a devastating electoral blow to Donald Trump. These are blue areas, guys. If it's close in New Jersey, it's not exactly a great thing for Democrats.
Yeah, absolutely. Rich, I want to stay on Virginia for a moment because the race between Abigail Spanberger and Winsome Sears, to me, there's a lesson to be learned there because we are seeing polls that are showing Abigail Spanberger further and further ahead. But Winsome Sears, she seemed to run on the same platform that Glenn Youngkin did. Now, it was successful for Glenn Youngkin, but that was in the wake of a lot of issues in Loudoun County, parental rights issues. Have those issues faded away for voters?
They're not gone, but that was a tertiary issue during this election season. This is a great example of know your audience, Amanda. People were screaming at the top of their lungs. And when in Virginia, voters say that the economy is the number one issue, or cost of living is, it doesn't necessarily mean the same thing as the rest of the country because so much of the northern part of the state, the economy is obviously heavily reliant on the federal government. So it was going to be a challenging year for Republicans given what Donald Trump has been doing. And that's not a bad thing, right? The rest of the country, Republicans definitely wanted Donald Trump to reduce the size and scope of government. The government shutdown everybody else is not that big of a thing. But when you get into Northern Virginia, the D.C. suburbs, Loudoun County, even outside of Fairfax, some more affluent areas, it is, right? Winsome Sears spent a lot of money and a lot of time running ads on transgender issues when all of the polling and all of the focus grouping was telling you to focus on cost of living and people's economic concerns. And I think this is similar to even what we're seeing in New York City. Republicans better not forget that they were elected on a domestic agenda to fix people's economic concerns, or at least to help address them. And if you don't, voters, they're not married to you, right? Especially not in a state like Virginia. Youngkin won, but it wasn't that big of a margin. He ran an almost flawless campaign. Sears was never going to be that level of a candidate. So, I mean, she should have been that, or campaign too, should have been that much more aware of whether or not she was knowing her audience. And ultimately, I don't think any one of us who do this for a living will look back on this campaign and say that they did a good job. They didn't.
Yeah. Rich, really quickly before I let you go, I got about a minute left. California, proposition, redistricting, probably going to happen, right?
It is. And it's not just the polling in my eyes. I'm looking at the early vote. I don't know what's going on over there. I mean, I do. I mean, I'm honestly saying I don't know. But the truth is there is a lot of it's not a remorse. There's a lot of complacency among Republicans out in the country right now. And they need something to light a fire. and wake them up, because even in some of the areas where Donald Trump did exceptionally well, look at the Central Valley, the returns in Stanislaus County, Democrats are ahead of them in returns. This is an area where it was a bit of a red flag area, where Donald Trump did exceptionally well, carried his districts, and yet you had a congressman like John Duarte go down in flames. There are reasons for that, and Republicans just haven't addressed them yet. Again, more focus on the domestic issues, John, will go a long way. All right, there's a lot of Republicans right now, just wondering what's going on. Right. So I mean, California is always going to be uphill for a statewide proposition. But the ballot returns and what we thought were increasing red areas are just not looking very impressive.
All right, I got to squeeze one more in, because you said it will take something to light the fire in California.
Yeah.
Do any of these gubernatorial candidates on the right side light the fire for next year?
I think if Jack Ciattarelli was to pull this out, that would be a huge morale boost for Republicans. It's not, in politics, It's never just one thing, but that would be a big deal. New Jersey is a state now that a lot of Republicans have started to eye, because Donald Trump's surprisingly strong performance there woke them up to some of the things that, we've talked about quite a bit, right? And people just didn't think it was possible until Trump got that close. And Jack ran a very good race in 21, came out of nowhere. The polls were wildly off, and he almost pulled that out. So that would go a long way. It would. Okay. But ultimately, again, I would tell people to take this stuff with a grain of salt, because a lot can happen in 6 months. It's politics. That's how it goes. Yeah.
All right, Californians, you hear what he said. Keep an eye on New Jersey. And lest we forget, President Trump won nearly 40% of the vote in California last year. So, that's right. All right, Rich Baris, Director of Big Data Poll. Rich, always great to have you here. Thanks so much. All right, everybody, we've got to take a quick break, and we'll have much more for you on the other side.